Hi, everybody. It's Tim Constantine from the Washington Times. I'm joined by Dave Bozell for America. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Tim. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. You know, I want to talk to you about the riots in LA. And I
Yeah.
want to talk about two parts to that. One is the legal part, the ideological part, what are people doing and why are they doing it? And is there any merit to it? And then separately, and second, I want to talk about the political side of that. There's always a political side, even when I don't agree on issues. Sometimes there's a political advantage to something. So I'll save that part of the discussion. But let's start out on LA. We see amazing numbers coming out of Homeland Security as far as the number of people are no longer coming across the border. And so they've shifted their focus a little bit. They're keeping the border safe. But the people that are here that are not supposed to be here, they're actually enforcing the law. Here's my question specifically is there has been no law changed since January. Congress hasn't taken any action. All they're doing is enforcing existing law. And yet there are people out protesting and burning cars and throwing concrete blocks off the interstate. What is the argument with?
Apparently, the Democrats disapprove of federal law enforcement going into cities and rooting out very bad people to keep their cities safe. I don't know why. I don't know why Democrats believe in that kind of a mantra, or why they want to take that policy position. It's a political loser. It's a public safety loser. Now, what has riled up the protesters? Obviously, a lot of these protesters must be friends with these hardcore criminals. That's number one. Number two, we've got anti-ICE groups that were previously funded by Biden's DHS, through federal grant making. They have more money than God to go out and waste their time and go into big cities like Los Angeles and protest against federal law enforcement officials. All pretty much funded by the DHS under the previous administration, the Biden administration. So
you make an important point here.
Yeah.
Is the funding would indicate this is an organized effort. These are not organic protests. In Washington, if you go out in front of the Supreme Court on any given day, there may be protests. Many of those protests are paid protesters. They're just trying to bring attention. Someone is paying them $15 an hour to walk around with a sign. When you talk about the abortion issue, for example, those are usually organic. You have people on both sides feel passionately about it, and they will turn out. And I wonder, maybe some of these protesters are organic, but is the effort itself being organized? And if so, who is it? Who is telling people, let's go out, we're going to give them hammers, we're going to give them concrete blocks, we're going to give them fire-making devices, we're going to give them baseball bats? Who's doing it?
Yeah, for those in the audience who may be a little bit more seasoned, I was watching the documentary on the Vietnam War on a plane back and forth from Chicago just yesterday. It's terrific. It's the protests, the anti-war protests in the Vietnam era started. This guy goes on to say they started at the Dow chemical plant protesting napalm, and there were 40 of them. Nobody was paid, right? That was just a bunch of kids who felt very strongly that we should not be producing napalm. Fast forward a couple of years, and you had 25,000 people in the National Mall protesting the Vietnam War. You didn't hear any charges back then because there were no charges to levy. That was a paid protest. But to your point, there's a lot of that going on every issue. Every issue has a subgroup, has an advocacy organization that are paying people, that particularly on the left, that are paying people to show up to Washington, D.C. or show up to Los Angeles, New York, et cetera, to make a lot of noise, to throw a lot of rocks. And like I said, DHS was a big funder of this. The acronym escapes me right now, but there was a group that applied for federal funds. They were they branded themselves as anti-ICE, pro-immigrant, pro-democracy organization. And hundreds of millions of dollars went to this effort, paid for by you, the taxpayer, to do this. So and not only that, the people that are protesting Most of them are illegal themselves. So ICE could just turn around and round them all up. But again, they don't have big federal criminal records, so they're not going to rise to the top of ICE's target list. So I cannot imagine, all right, sort of pivoting to the political here, I cannot imagine why Mayor Bass and Governor Newsom want to stake their political careers on the position that we do not want law enforcement rooting out very bad people out of their cities. There is no logical reason other than they feel handcuffed to this radical left that basically is the pulse of the Democrat Party right now.
I want to talk the political side. Before we slide all the way into that, let me ask about President Trump, because you mentioned
He's having a great week.
Mayor Bass is saying, well, this is Trump's fault. This wouldn't happen if ICE wasn't doing this. And it reminds me of the old story where a young woman is raped and they say, well, she shouldn't have worn that short skirt, as though it's her fault she was assaulted. She's a victim. And I'm thinking the city of Los Angeles is a victim, and trying to say Donald Trump coming in and enforcing the law is what's causing the chaos. How much of this is, politically speaking, when we say someone is paying for this, is trying to tie the old notion of chaos and Trump together?
If you are, Terry Moran, okay, he just got fired by ABC. He's going over to Substack. He puts out this long video saying, hey, I've just been let go. Now join me on Substack so we can solve America's problems, because America is hurting and we have a lot of problems we need to solve. Buddy, America is doing just fine. The economy, you can feel it. It is pent up. It is about to take off like a rocket. 2.4% unemployment. That's almost nothing. Inflation has gone down. Food prices have all gone down. We're about to take off like a rocket. The border is secure. The feds are going into big cities and rooting out bad guys. We're about to celebrate a very cool parade in honor of our armed services this weekend in Washington, D.C. It is a great time to be an American. But if you're a Democrat, because it's Trump, it's all awful. And it just gets to this sort of this, it's thrown around too loosely, I suppose, but this Trump derangement system. If Trump did it, it must be bad. And
you've heard me say this many times, but if Donald Trump cured cancer, people like Terry Moran would say Trump puts doctors out of work.
Right, not good enough.
There's always a downside, no matter what.
No matter what. And I think the country, you could tell by the right track, wrong track polling results, right? He's about to break records for the right direction numbers. President Trump is the highest numbers that we've had in 16, 17 years. So the country is turning away from this divisive negativity that the liberal media want to impose on the country, and a subset of Democrats want to just absorb, because they just cannot come around to enjoying prosperity, enjoying freedom, enjoying safety, because Trump delivered it. And it's a shame. I think we've all experienced this in our personal lives, where we've got family and friends that just have just sort of maybe ostracized us because we may have voted for Trump or support these positions. And it's a real sadness that folks cannot seem to come around to this way of thinking and this level of security and this level of prosperity. But the country is going to leave them behind, right? Despair is a sin, Tim. It just is. And if you're going to live a life of despair, then the country has every right to just kind of leave you behind, and we're going to enjoy the fruits of our labor and the fruits of our security.
Let's finish the discussion by talking about the political side of this. And when we look at the optics, as they always say in the world of politics, you have people who do not want to go back to Mexico or Guatemala, on Honduras or El Salvador, fill in the blank, Venezuela. And yet they are running around waving the flag of Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras. It's crazy. The very thing they are saying they don't want to happen, they're out running around holding the signs. They are setting police cars on fire, and the mayor of Los Angeles is saying these are peaceful protests. We've seen that story before. And Gavin Newsom, who clearly has designs on running for president in 2028, is somehow staking his flag on the idea that the president should not be there trying to help quell the fears. And before we go any further, let me point out this is not the first riot that Los Angeles has ever had. If you go back to the early 1990s, when the Rodney King riots, you had 63 people die in those riots. You had over 1,200, almost 1,300 people badly injured, hospitalized in those riots. And so, is that what you have to wait for? The only time that all slowed down was when they eventually brought in the National Guard. So, do you wait until people are killed, or do you squelch this thing in the beginning? I'm thinking this is a huge blunder. I don't like Gavin Newsom's politics, but he is a politically savvy guy, I thought, until I've watched how he's handled this. So politically, how does all this shake out?
Newsom is kind of stuck politically. Does he quietly applaud the efforts of the president to root out crime in his major cities? Absolutely, he does. Can he support those efforts? No, he cannot. He will not be able to get out of a Democratic primary, which is chock full of the hardcore lefties, if he is seen as supporting the president in eradicating illegal immigration. He just cannot. He cannot get out of that primary. So yes, he wants to run for president. He knows that the first step is winning the nomination. He thinks he'll be able to pivot. Don't be surprised if once the presidential cycle starts to come around, he'll hang his reputation on the fact that he opposed the president's efforts in California. And if he were to win the nomination, he'll just completely change on a dime and say, of course I supported the president's efforts in California all along.
We just want peace. Rodney King, can't we all just get along?
Can't we all just get along?
Please. Dave Bozell, For America. I'm Tim. Thanks so much for joining us.